Welcome everybody. This is a County of Annapolis to deal with the budget. I'll start with the roll call. District 1.
Bruce Pratt.
District 2. District 3 is myself, Alan Parrish. District 4. District 5. District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
James Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Red Reddick.
And District 11.
Diana Blanc.
Thank you. So what we're going to do today is we spent 3 days last week going over the budget, and we came down to a certain amount that we thought would reflect about 1 cent increase on the tax rate, and we asked staff to go back and finalize the analysis within that direction. They've come forward with a revised document which does reflect those instructions, and there are revisions both to the operating budget and the capital budget. And so for the purposes of efficiency, I'm going to ask the CAO, and I think through him he'll ask staff. What I'd like to do is just go through the changes that were made following the directions from council, the motions that we passed last day, plus any changes that staff made after receiving our direction. So I don't really want to go over issues that were before us, I guess, last time, on which there was no disagreement, but I think that's my desire. Of course, I think council's open to do whatever council wants to do, so if anybody has anything to raise, they can raise it, but I'm hopeful that we'll get through the process by going through again looking at the changes that we made last day to the budget that was proposed, and any other changes that staff has made that we currently have not been notified of. So with that procedure, I'll turn matters over to the CAO.
Can you adjust your microphone, please?
Warden, through you to council, the warden has summarized what I was going to say to you. So all to say is that the changes you asked for have been reflected in the budget. And rather than belabor it, I will turn it over to our Director of Finance. She'll go page by page and just identify the changes on the page, so you see the changes that were made, and then we'll turn it back over to the chair. Okay.
And we're going to start with the operating budget, and then we'll, when that's over, we'll go to the capital budget. Go ahead, Ms. Ord.
Okay. So you can hear me?
Yes, speak right into that microphone, and we can. Yeah. That's it.
Okay. All right. So as you can see on your summary page, in yellow, highlighted there, we have 0. So we now have a balanced budget with a 1 cent tax increase from $1.01 to $1.02.
Perfect.
We want to change there, but I will take you to the transfer page, which is the very last page. So 1 cent is equal to $119,035.
Yeah, let's just slow down here. You're on the page with T1?
Yes.
Yes.
So you'll see red highlighted in yellow, $24,700. So the difference between what we came up with is roughly $94,000. That is the deficit that we need to recover from the $119,000 1 cent increase. The remainder that we did not need to balance the budget is $24,700, which ends up being a transfer to operating reserve.
I think as we go through this, after we finish Ms. Ord's presentation on each page, I'll ask for any questions with respect to that page as we move along. And so just if I could summarize what she just said, and she said it very clearly, I thought, but 1 cent on the tax rate is $119,000. If you remember last day, with the cuts that we made we brought the increase in expenditures, or I guess I should say the deficit, down to $90,000, leaving a balance of maybe $25,000. And it looks like what staff has done is, with most of it, is simply put it into our operating reserve instead of trying to find some other place to spend some money or anything like that. So that's what they've done. And we're going to come back to that later, I understand. Okay, so Ms. Ord, if you'd go ahead to, is there anything on, I guess we're still in revenue here then. R1.
So you'll notice the two yellow highlighted areas next to residential and resource. Those amounts increased by the $119,335. So that's where our revenue is coming from. Balance the budget. And that's the only change on that page.
Thank you. Any questions on that page? Councillor Hudson?
Yes, also in yellow were the community rates. Was there a change there?
No change there. That was just still highlighted for my
I just noticed it's being highlighted.
Yeah. And no change to R2. Or R3. So now we're on the expenditure, E1. So you'll notice highlighted in yellow, we removed all of the warden's expenses from GL 6031.
Sorry, I'm not with you, I'm afraid. Where are you?
On page E1.
Oh, you've slipped through to E1, okay.
Sorry, if I go too fast. Slow me down.
Well, I just need all the help I can get in following the pages, that's all.
So under the warden's budget, you'll notice the highlighted amounts have been, they have been removed from account numbers 6031 to 6080. As well under council, GL numbers 6035, 6036, and 6038 have been removed from the budget. Those are the only changes on that page.
Okay. No questions so far? It's fine. Okay, next page.
So the next change would be on page E4. So we've added $20,000 for the new CAO reallocation expenses. And the next change would be on E13. So under number 6,000, salary zoning countywide has been lowered to 130,000 from 230,000. As well as 6033, we removed, I think it's 4,250 to $250.
Excuse me, what's that noise I'm hearing? Oh, it's in the room next door, is it?
Yeah.
They're having fun.
Is it being picked up on the sound?
Most likely.
Okay, well, we'll keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go to E14, so I put economic development and tourism back in there for last year. So it shows all the expenses not under the former public lands part, but they're separated under economic development, and what was spent and what the budget was in 2021. But the only expense coming out in 21-22 is the $15,000. And 10,000 of that is for the Matthews Valley Chamber of Commerce. And the remainder is insurance for the Bear River Greenhouse, $2,080. And under former Upper Plains Park, all expenses have already been removed there, just leaving $100,000 for legal fees.
Yes, Deputy Warden.
Thank you for awarding the question, Ms. Ord. The Bear River Greenhouse, that $2,800 for insurance, as soon as we switch that over to them, we're not going to be live on the hook for that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
On E15,
Did you say 15 or 16?
15.
15?
8110. And that was the Parks, Trails, Upper Plains picnic card. We had 5,000 in there, and we reduced it by 3,780 for some additional operating costs.
Next page.
And those were the only changes to those motions.
Came through on the motions we made. Yeah, and as we've said that staff really didn't make any other changes. What they did is move that into our surplus under transfers that you identified at the beginning.
Right.
Okay. So we'll go to the capital budget. There's two things here. Did everybody get this handout called Capital Plan Update April 16, 2021? I see Councillor Bartow looking quizzically. Did you get one? Yeah. And with it is an amended color chart. Okay, Ms. Ord, what changes were made to the capital budget from last day?
If it's all right, I'll get Mr. McGinnis to walk through that.
Thank you, Peter Warden. Just as a bit of background, we went through the capital plan. There was discussion on several items. I've reflected those changes both raised by council and raised by myself in terms of projects that were either missed or discussed. And this page is just the highlight of those changes, and I'll go through those individually. The projects that are highlighted in the left-hand side of the spreadsheet, in yellow, are the items that have changed. So, following along on the written page, the first one up is the electric vehicle charging stations. I haven't noted any funding there. We haven't found any appropriate grant money for that. There is kind of evolving in terms of those. The only one that we would qualify for would be if we were to install 20 charging stations. I don't think we're there. And there's a couple of options that if council chooses to, they can go ahead, and they vary from $5,000 for, I believe, the trickle charge, which is kind of an overnight thing. I think it's about $15,000 for 2-hour charges, and then $20,000 for almost like filling it with gas. So staff are still doing research on that, but I thought it'd be worthwhile to mark it on the capital plan and find a program that will come back to council. Support sub-irrigation, I had reached out to a couple of irrigation firms. I've yet to hear from them. I've put a number in there again just to earmark it. I know when the project was initially being discussed, there was about a $10,000 budget in there as a line item that was eventually cut during the site development. And I had made some assumptions that that unit price was fairly low given the entire construction of the site. So I've I've taken an estimate of $20,000 for the installation of the irrigation system. I've yet to hear for some companies, but again, there's several options there. But I would recommend to council at a minimum, we get some irrigation lines, some distribution lines buried to the individual fields, and then what kind of sprinkler heads that we put on there, anywhere from large guns that would be recessed into the ground, or large sprinkler heads, to guns that we would bring onto the site, 100 to 120 foot spread on those, hook them up to the distribution system, and then once we've had a thorough wiring, we'll roll them away. I have to have those discussions with a more knowledgeable irrigation firm. For planning, the next one is the planning consultant, which is discussed to move to the capital program. It does qualify under gas tax. So that's the $170,000 there to undertake the county-wide planning project. I will comment that it's not all likely to be spent in 1 year. You've got to get the tender out, public meetings. I think it's important to commit the funding so that we don't miss it in years following and remove it from the gas tax, or make the commitment within the gas tax reserve. As I noted in my presentation last week, there was some scheduled repaving of some streets in Cornwallis Park. One being South Broadway. It's the kind of the main entry road to the residential area south of the highway, and then the road around the condominium housing units called Harborview. I've noted those as unfunded. Those are fairly old numbers, 2016 numbers. And I've asked Hatch to give me some updates on those numbers, and we'll bring those back to council when we have a more accurate figure. I've left them unfunded because traditionally we've targeted gas tax, but you'll see when we get to the bottom of the page, there is not enough money currently in the gas tax budget to fund those two programs. So I've left them unfunded. We'll bring those numbers back to council. As we discussed last week, there is an effort through the province and the feds to double our gas tax again. I understand it's gone through first reading, but you've yet to hear officially that an additional $800,000 is going to come to Canada. And as I said, that's one option in terms of funding those two road programs. But they will come back to council. Another item that was discussed last week was the hydrology study and surface reservoir improvements for the Margarettsville water system. I've allocated some funding there. The scope that I envision for the hydrology study is really a bit of a tabletop exercise to investigate past hydrological studies in the area. There's been several. After rereading kind of the summary that's inside the source water protection plan, I think there's been at least 2 major hydrology studies in the area, and then the review of the wells that are registered within the catchment area for Margarettsville, and then to come back to council with a proposed program. What I got out of after reviewing the source water protection plan hydrology summary, it's the last appendix in the plan, because of the particular geology around there and that groundwater, you're fortunate to find groundwater if it's in rock fractures. And I'm a hydrologist, but my reading of it is difficult in the area immediately surrounding the community. I don't know after you get what's called the crest of the hill farther to the south how the geology changes. But I'd like to get a hydrologist to come in and review the data that we have, and then come back to us with a recommendation whether we carry on drilling in other areas to see if we can find some production wells that would supply the community, or at least augment the community in terms of the surface supply. On the reservoir improvements, the recommendation there is to, there's quite a bit, there hasn't been a lot of maintenance done in the surface reservoir over the last number of decades. So we'll be cleaning up of any of the treated area and possibly hauling in some additional material to increase the storage capacity within the reservoir. We're looking at whether we can kind of de-sludge the reservoir, but we're still investigating that in terms of there's some actually testing what the sludge looks like and whether it can be pumped out and reused and then kind of increasing the reservoir depth that way. Mr. Ward?
Oh, Councillor Connell, sorry.
Hasn't that reservoir been dug out before to increase the flow for the springs?
Not major, not in my time that I've been here in the last 10 years.
I think prior to that, I think they attempted to clean out to enhance the flow from the springs into that water.
I'll have to do some investigating on that, but I mean, that pond sludges over time. It builds up sludge. So it might be a combination of both. I do think we need to go back in and improve or re-armor the embankments. So it might be a bit of both. Turning the page on the spreadsheet. The New Holland tractor is presented last week. It was unfunded. Been reviewing it with Director of Finance and the CAO. We've shared the funding between the operating reserve, the sewer reserve, and the water reserve because we do maintain those facilities with that mower. Just because of the training we have associated with those facilities. There's some high embankments there. This is the four-wheel drive unit that we use to maintain those. So the funding is now in place for that.
So you can see that the $24,000 we just put into operating reserve has now been spent on the New Holland tractor along with another $6,000. Councillor Sheridan, did you have a question?
Was there any other place that we could take that so we didn't have to touch that operating reserve?
Mr. McGinnis or Ms. Ord, is there any other place we could take that from?
From my perspective, we do maintain some green areas in Cornwallis Park, but they're not parks. They're just holdings, land holdings. The only other option that I see is in a park reserve, but it's really not used on parks. It's used for street sidewalks and land maintenance.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you. The Upper Clements Park will have to be mowed this year. Will that be used for there?
We've because we, in terms of our capacity, in terms of staffing levels, we're kind of maxed out, so we looked at contracting that out.
Okay.
Just the last notice at the bottom of the typewritten page is just the notice, if you compare it to last week's sheet, the gas tax reserve kind of missed something there in terms of the 2021 J-class repaving costs had to come out of there. So that reserve balance has been adjusted, and you'll see the new balance at the bottom of the spreadsheet remaining if all the projects are approved.
So just on that last point where you see there about the broadband engineering cost was removed, that's the, correct me if I'm wrong, so that, we've been paying Hatch over the past little while out of gas tax because we can pay consultants out of gas tax. When I was signing the checks yesterday, it looked to me like that should be something that would be under the $13 million internet project expense. And so I take it that the staff had a discussion and felt that that was correct, that it really should be put on the $13 million. So can one of you tell me how much roughly was moved there?
About 145,000.
145,000.
And I can give just a little more background on that.
Yeah.
It was initially gas tax because we didn't have the borrowing in place. That's
Okay.
why it was initially charged gas tax. We just carried over, but you corrected that observation.
So, when I asked yesterday about how we were doing on the internet project, and I was told that we were on budget or better than budget, having moved that, the $145,000 back into the internet budget, let me ask again how we're doing on the overall project. Mr. McGinnis?
We're, because of the budget was set on previous proposals, we are more cost effective than under the previous proposal. Under the original scope of where the internet was going to be constructed, we will come in under budget. That's why we are considering areas that were not considered to be servicing, and I think there was a couple of points discussed last week about that. We're looking at servicing those areas with that money within the 13 million. But the principle has always been, we don't exceed the budget. We project where we can build. When we've reached the end of our budget, we stop building. So we won't be over budget.
So right now, you're hopeful, if I can use it that way, that we can complete the project as anticipated within the funds that we've allocated.
Correct, and with a little more, with additional scope increase in areas that you've been approached by, either by the public or through council.
Any questions, Councillor Conway?
So looking at the balance of the operating reserve, is $1,081,000. And Lewis has told us that litigation, we may lose the rest of it. So my concern is that I was hoping we could build those reserves up a bit, but now we're taking the 30,000 for the tractor. My biggest concern is that once this budget is passed, when the project comes forth, a good feeling project, and the mention of taking it out of operating reserves is going to blow my mind. Because we can't keep taking money out and put less in. It doesn't matter with the tractor. We're putting 24,700 in and we're taking 30 out. I wish my bank account wasn't like that. You know, I would rather see less taken out of our operating and more taken out of our water and sewer for that project. You know, I could see, even if you only took the 24/7, but to taking more than what we're putting in is to be depleting that fund more. So that's my concern. And my concern is that throughout the year, once the budget's passed, I hope when somebody dreams a project up or sends requests for a project to a county, that we take all that into consideration, that if it's got to come out of operating reserves, if it's only a wish, it may be a wish for further years. Because if we don't soon start sticking to our guns about building our reserves, it's the same that Lewis said about us running our household. We can't keep running it into the hole and not putting any away. And if we keep taking more out than what we put in there, you'll never see the daylight. That's my concern.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, Mr. Warden, I was looking at the recreational and culture reserve.
What page is that on?
Well, it's on the back. It's where we're at,
Okay, the capital?
on the capital. And the money for the tractor replacement there, 70,000. Is it a possibility of taking something out of that? Maybe Louis Cotino, our CAO, or
It's possible.
well, anything's possible.
Yes,
But can we?
And we could. I guess that's the answer. And I'll look to the Director of Finance to see if there's any particular reason why we can't.
I think Dawn's going to check the policy. Dawn's going to check the policy, but it's my understanding we can use those monies for whatever council chooses.
Are you
So,
looking at Ms. Campbell when you make that answer, Ms. Ord?
well, she's looking for policies.
There's a policy.
For policy.
There's a policy.
Okay, we're,
That,
so just while Ms. Campbell is looking that up, if I understand the point that Councillor LeBlanc has brought up, it goes along the lines of, rather than taking 30,000 out of the operating reserve, could we not take the whole 70,000 out of the sewer reserve and the water reserve? Is that what you're suggesting, Councillor LeBlanc?
Yeah, take the 30 out instead of operating there, yeah.
Yeah.
Warden, if I could respond on the
Sure.
on water reserve. Anytime we touch the water reserve, because it's there at the UARB, I guess, I spelled out how it was, or am I off base on it?
If I may, through the warden, they can make comment, but I don't have any problem defending that we use the equipment for the maintenance of water utilities and for the sewer utility, which is more in control of council, because UARB doesn't have jurisdiction, just the water.
So we don't have to justify use of the UARB, I mean, the reserve fund.
I guess they can make comment on it, or maybe through a rate application, but in terms of approval, it's only over 250,000 where they get involved.
So, Warden, the answer is it can come out from those two reserves too.
But we have a policy that might impact on this issue. Is that my understanding?
I'm finding out we have a lot of policies.
Okay, Ms. Campbell, did you find what you were looking for?
Yes. I think the simple answer is you could, but I should read you that section of the policy
Sure.
for clarity. We have a policy, AM 6.5.1, which is called Special Reserve for Culture and Recreation. And in the purpose of the fund, it says, the reserve is established for strategic recreation and cultural initiatives of the municipality. The use of funds is for A, land acquisition and development of county-owned parks, open space, trails, and facilities for public recreation and historical and cultural purposes, and B, county land assembly, conservation, or development initiatives and projects of historical, cultural, recreational, environmental, or community development significant to the county of Annapolis, and C, a purpose at the discretion of the municipal council.
Oh, I'll have a comment.
So which is, so are we suggesting taking it out of the Recreation and Culture Reserve? Is that where we are?
30,000.
The 30.
The 30,000.
So the new park down there, that's culture and
We have
heritage.
209,000 in that reserve at the moment.
189.
As I read it, is that right?
Yes, 189,
The balance,
balance,
On the bottom.
very, very small numbers, 189, 446. Keep way down the bottom. That's our balance, so
Oh, down here, 189.
way down the bottom.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much. Couldn't the sprinkler be funded out of that?
It is.
That's where that sprinkler is going to be funded.
Well,
Yeah,
because
So we left that in.
It's coming out of that reserve.
it's already in there.
It's already in there. Thank you.
Councillor Redden?
If we think back to our almost $9,000 we've allocated in operating to the picnic park at Upper Clemens.
Just a sec, if are you going on to a separate issue, it looks like, rather
No.
than same issue?
I'm getting there, yeah.
You're bringing it back? Okay.
They tie together.
Okay.
4,000 of that was capital expenditure. Why would that not be under Recreation and Cultural Reserve as opposed to an operating expense?
Warden, that's because your CAO said otherwise. It probably could have come up from capital reserve, but I'm accustomed to small amounts going out of operating as opposed to capital. But I understand the practice has been that it does come off from capital here. It's still $4,000 one way or the other. It's all taxpayers' money, and that was just where I saw it coming up was operating, but that could also come out from capital.
Well, let's go back to the tractor.
Yes, please.
And Councillor LeBlanc, would you like to make a motion?
Well, from what I'm seeing and what Don has presented to us, I think that we are quite capable of using 30,000 from our reserve. So I'd like to make the motion that we move the 30,000 for the purchase of the New Holland tractor and take it out of the recreational and cultural reserve.
So move the 30,000 from operating reserve to the recreation and culture reserve.
For the tractor.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Longmire seconds it. We've had some discussion on the issue. Any further discussion with respect to that? Councillor Sheridan?
So how much do we put into that reserve each year?
We put in
Can someone answer that? How much do
50
we
or
put into that
55?
reserve each year?
55,000. If you look on the transfer page, you see 55,000.
Yeah.
That's part of the policy.
Any other questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for that. So that's one amendment to the budget as presented. Any other discussion? We finished the budget presentation for the changes since the last day?
Yes, Board.
So I'll invite any other comments. Otherwise, we'll move to approve the budget as amended. Councillor Morrison?
I'll make the motion to approve the budget as amended.
I think there is
Is there?
there is a formal motion that the clerk has drafted that was handed to the deputy warden. Is that the one we want? Yes. Madam Clerk? Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Morrison. Believe it or not, it goes on for about this much.
Oh.
It does.
So just a sec, before we read that, is there any other discussion with respect to the budget? If you have a question, or you can, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So that 30,000 we just flipped from, I'm just trying to get this straight in my own head. We took it off out of the operating reserve. So that's going back in, and we're going to take that 30,000 out of the cultural, recreation and heritage and all that. So does that get added to the 24,000 that's going to our reserves now? So I'm to understand that we're going to put $54,000 into our reserve? That's what I'm asking.
Ms. Orde, or Ms.
You still end up with 24,700 going into your operating reserve.
So can I go further to ask where that $30,000 is going?
That expense is going to come from recreation culture reserve.
But it doesn't build that doesn't build our operating reserve back up because we're adding that $30,000 back in.
Well, your final balance will be 30,000 more.
Oh, it's just coming up. Okay, I get it.
Once it's removed.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget deliberations that we've had? If not, there's a bit of a formal motion, is my understanding. This is my first budget procedure. And the clerk has presented the deputy warden with a fairly long motion. And before you read it, does everybody have a copy of that, or was it just given? There were some numbers in red. Have they been changed now because of what we did?
They haven't changed because the tax rate is up, but the increase is 1 cent, and this reflects the 1 cent.
So I'm seeing, you have a copy of that, Ms. Ord?
Mm-hmm.
And so the numbers on that motion are still correct?
That's right.
Despite the movement of, okay. Okay, Deputy Warden, would you like to make a motion?
I would. Levy and collection of tax rate for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Pursuant to Section 72 of the Municipal Government Act, the Municipal Council of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis estimate the sums amounting to $11,700,217 are required for the lawful purpose of the municipality for the year ending March 31st, 2022, to be raised from the residential assessment, and sums amounting to $1,002,040 are required as aforesaid to be raised from the commercial assessment. After crediting the probable revenue from all sources other than the rates for the said year, and making due allowances for abatement and losses which might occur in the collection of the taxes, and for the said year which may not be collected or collectible, I move to recommend that the Municipal Council authorize the levying and collection of the rate of 1.025 on each $100 of assessment value of a residential and resource property, assessed in the assessment roll, and the rate of 1.80 on each $100 of assessment value of commercial property assessed in the assessment roll, which rates the council deems sufficient to raise the sums required to defray expenditures of the said municipality for the said year, and any deficit from the preceding year, and authorize that interest at the rate of 12% per annum be charged on current rates and taxes remaining unpaid on or after June 30th, 2021, and authorize the payment of said taxes to be made to the municipal treasurer of the said municipality on or before the last day of June in the said year, and the municipal council fixes June 30th, 2021 as the day after which the clerk may proceed to issue warrants for the collections of all rates and taxes unpaid.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Longmire seconds. Any questions or comments with respect to that motion? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I realize we're raising the tax a penny on 100. And I don't see where we're going to be adding a lot to our reserves. And I just query as to whether we shouldn't be raising it that other half a cent. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor Pratt?
Just responding to the Deputy Warden. I've given a lot of thought. That was your original motion before we went down to one. And I don't know if it's the time for discussing it. I don't know what the feeling of council is, if that's... Our resources are still, our reserves rather, are still pretty slim. That's something, I don't know if it would be in order to entertain that motion to go up by the cent half as opposed to a cent. I don't know. I'm just looking for clarification.
Well, the motion on the floor would have the tax rate increased by 1 cent on $100 of assessment. If you want to move an amendment after our budgeting process that be changed, I guess the floor is open.
So we should deal with this motion first.
No, it would have to be an amendment. If the motion passes, then your suggestion of increasing the tax rate more than what's on the table would have to be an amendment to the motion. Let me finish.
Okay, I'll hear you out.
Well, no, Councillor Connell had a comment. Do you want to hear from him, or do you want to think about what you want to do?
I'll hear from
Councillor Connell?
Well, I don't disagree that our reserves are being dwindled. We definitely got to start over. It's going to take brought into council in November, and I think in December it was reported that we had around 300,000 in our reserve. So all of a sudden we have $1 million something in our reserve. So if the world keeps continuing on in the same state of COVID restraints as we have today, the only thing as a counselor is to hope that there's money to put in the reserves at the end of this fiscal year. So we could have quite an advantage of putting a fair amount back into our budget at the end of this fiscal year because of the COVID situation. So I'm satisfied with the cent raise this year, but if something happened, like the world opens up and we spend everything in our budget and very little to put in our reserves, I think we would have to look at something in years to come to build up our reserves.
I have a question for the CAO. Right now, after removing that $30,000 from our operating reserve, the way I read the chart, we have $1,122,858 in our operating reserve. My question is, does that include any surplus that we would have made from the last fiscal year?
No, Warden, through to council, no, because that year end is still, we still have to do that, and you could see an increase in the operating reserve after year end is complete. Because our year end doesn't, I guess will be done end of June, Director?
Yeah, the earliest being in June.
So the number that you see there it's not going to go down, it'll go up. There will be some, once we look at the final year's accounting, so it will go up.
Yeah, the operating reserve will go up. Yeah.
Well, not by little.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote on the motion that was read out by the Deputy Warden. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now there's a second motion from the Deputy Warden.
Collection of area rates for 2021-2022. I move to recommend that municipal council set the area rates for streetlights, fire hydrants, paving, sidewalks, and other specific rates as presented for the 2021-22 fiscal year in accordance with Section 75 of the Municipal Government Act. The area rate shall apply to residential, commercial, resource, and business occupancy assessment in the area as attached.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Redden seconds. Discussion.
So that means they're unchanged?
Pardon me?
So they're unchanged from last year? Unchanged.
They're unchanged. The area rates are unchanged.
The area rates will show as an attachment when it comes to council on Tuesday. There's just another whole page of area rates that the deputy warden would choose to read them off.
Would you like me to read them off?
I don't think it comes in attachment. These are the area rates that will apply in 2021.
Yeah, they're on the second page, and I think the clerk's saying they'll be read out at the council meeting.
Everyone will see them in front of them.
Okay.
So the deputy warden has them and anyone wants to ask.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Madam Clerk, is there more business to conduct today? Thank you. Is there anything anyone else would like to raise before we adjourn for today? If not, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Connell moves.
No, I'll leave it. Thank you.
The seconder for the motion. Councillor Sheridan seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.